everybody, welcome to a new week. I really hope that you have found the series I've just finished. Technically it's finished, or we are finishing right now with this specific episode on the different careers you can get in the fashion industry. I hope that at least you have some idea that there is more to fashion than just designing clothes. So that means even if you do begin with fashion design, you can still expand to other parts of the industry and just grow from there. It's always just good to understand clothes anyway and how they are made. And I think usually people who have that background usually add a lot of benefit to the other sectors. So this week I've decided that I am going to share a bit more about how to get work in the fashion industry in Kenya. The reason I have said work and not a job is because fashion is very skill based. At least here in Kenya it's very skill based. It's about what you can do. And you might not always get a job as a permanent position, but you can always find work in this industry. It could be work you've generated yourself. It could even just be short-term contracts that you do for people. So it's always possible to make money in this industry. It really just depends on how strategic you are. And I want to share these tips because I get these questions a lot. And the issue I tend to have is that people who get into this industry get into it thinking that there is a formula of success. There is no formula in fashion. It's like trying to get into the music industry and thinking that you want to be as famous as Beyonce, and you think that if you follow exactly her career the way she did it, that you will become a big musician like her. That's not how art works. Art is very different. It really just depends on how you network, how you present yourself, where you place yourself, the opportunity that comes your way. If you seek opportunities or you don't, you never know what will work. Because sometimes you could even have been a very successful designer. Something happens like a pandemic or something, and suddenly your business is down and you have to start again, or you end up doing something else totally different. There is no formula. So I just want to share these things, and hopefully this will be a resource now for people who are always looking for work in the industry and just learn to navigate through the trials. It's a very difficult industry to navigate. If you're not a resilient person, you will probably quit earlier than you should have because you didn't really give it a real chance. And I understand that a lot of people come from families where they don't really support you getting into the fashion industry. So that is why there's that stress of I need to make money. Yeah, so that ends up being a lot of pressure for a lot of people. My advice would be, if you don't have the support system to pursue a fashion business or anything like that, your fashion career, make money doing something else and pursue fashion on the side until you're sure you want to go for it. Because I understand not everyone has the luxury of just pursuing fashion, and there are people who actually get into the industry much later in life. There is no perfect time to get into the fashion industry. If you really need to figure out your income, you can always do something else and pursue fashion on the side. So I will begin this video by sharing my journey, and then I will give you some tips on how to navigate getting work in the fashion industry in Kenya. So let's begin. So my story I'll just share the beginning parts of the beginning journey of my career in fashion. So immediately, first of all, it took a while for me to settle in a school. I started in one school and they seemed to have some administration issues because they kept changing teachers. There was some irregularity with basically how they were teaching us, and it really brought a lot of confusion, especially if the teaching methods are different. It really just messed up. So I opted to look for another school, and I ended up in a school. Finding a school was very difficult at that time. In Nairobi, at least let me just say in Kenya, the options weren't very many in terms of very good syllabuses. So right now, if I wanted to further study my fashion education, I would probably have to start from scratch just because of the diploma I have. The diploma I have is not internationally recognized, so I would have to start again. Thankfully, there are some institutions like persons that actually pick people based on talent, and you can actually just get in. I think I would end up still doing everything again, but it also depends on which sector of the fashion industry I would want to study, because the beauty of international schools in fashion is that you don't have to only study fashion design. You can study fashion marketing, you can study fashion merchandising. All those careers I mentioned in the previous videos are actually, in some schools, they're actually whole degrees in themselves. So unlike here, where you probably have to figure out and work experiences that will lead you to those places, there they're whole degrees. So anyway, those are just things I'm navigating. So just to see where I am, it's not always about which school you go to. So the school I went to, at least I got the basics. We had very good teachers. The only issue I had with them is that they were not really forthright with me about the certification they were giving me. They told me that it was international because that was the reason I picked them, but it's like they just wanted to recruit students, and at the very end you realize that there is no international certification. So in the end I was at a very big disadvantage, and there was nothing much I could do. And it's not necessarily like it's easy to convince your parents to pay for you to do school again. And generally fashion is very expensive, because I know people just look at the school fees, but the truth is you're always buying things, because you always have projects to do. You're always buying things. So another thing, when you're checking for schools, check what they actually give you. My advice is, do not rely on what the school gives you so much, because you should have those things. You should have your own sewing machine, you should have your own sewing kit, you should have everything for yourself, because what are you going to use once you're out of school? It's just important to always have those sewing equipment for yourself. And sometimes it's easier to convince your parents to get those things for you while you're still in school than when you're out of school, because when you're out of school they're expecting that you're going to go and get a job and buy those things yourself. So thankfully for me, my parents bought for me what I needed while I was still in school, so I could actually also practice at home and also finish my projects on time. Another thing is, I was not able to get an internship immediately after school, because at that time the established brands or brands that were offering internships were not very many, so they were always getting people asking for opportunities to intern there, and it was very difficult for me to get places, because I was also very specific with where I wanted to go. The school did try to help once in a while, but they were not very successful, because it was just complicated with how the industry was at that time. There was a lot of secrets, not wanting students work being copied by established designers, and it was just a mess. So it was very difficult. So what I ended up doing is that I just decided to make stuff for myself. I practiced by making clothes for myself. If you see some of my earliest clothes, you would probably laugh, but the beauty of being a fashion student is that, or someone who is just very new in the industry, is that your mind is very free and very creative, and you just want to make impossible things, whether they're neat or not. You don't even care about neatness, you care more about your creativity. So sometimes I do look back at some of my work and I realize that I really did have creative ideas, and I also experimented a lot with many techniques that I was taught in school. When you're established, you'll realize the more you are in the industry, the more you just make what the customer will buy. So that's usually the main difference, and that is why sometimes when a fashion student finishes school, they just feel like nobody understands their work and everybody just wants to look like everyone else. Especially here in Kenya, people are not really over the top in how they dress. So creating something brand new or testing the market with something that most Kenyans haven't seen, it will need you to be a bit more established in the industry and already have a clientele to experiment. Although you should never stop experimenting as a fashion business person or as a fashion designer. So what happened was, I worked a bit for myself. I knew nothing, because unfortunately the school I also went to did not have a business course. Please check if the school you are in has a business course. Most schools in Kenya do not offer business, fashion business, which is very unfortunate. But if they do not have, enroll in a certificate program. There are so many entrepreneurship programs now For me, I did mine much later, like over 10 years later is when I did an entrepreneurship class. So just find one and do it. It will really help you, and especially if you find one that is really makes you focus on your business. Like I really love the one I did was Synapis, and Synapis was basically the way they created the curriculum. It's like a business plan. You're working on your business every week because it's once a week, and because they target people who are already in business. So you work on your business, and then basically what you've learned in class you implement in class, and then you present and everything like that. So that one is very practical, and it's very good, and at the end you get an opportunity to win a grant. So that's the one I would recommend because it's the one I did. I don't know about the others. Maybe Centonomy works, I don't know. And Centonomy and Synapis is available in other countries as well because they have online classes as well, so it's not just Kenya. So I did, okay, right after I tried my own thing and failed epically, I did get a job, and I worked in a bookshop for a bit. I didn't have to work there for long. I worked for 3 months before I actually got another job at a fashion brand, and there I can tell you is where I really learned how to work with tailors, how to give instruction, and how to manage a shop, keep records and all that, because I was a retail manager in the shop. I was talking to customers, ideas and all that. I really learned more about running a business in that sense, a practical way. And the reason I was hired also was because I continued to work on my craft despite not getting an opportunity. And I also always wear what I make, so automatically if you go to an interview and you're wearing what you've made and the job has something to do with fashion and creating clothes, then it's a no-brainer, you get the job. And I was also very clear of what I was going to bring into the business, what I was going to outside of what my boss was giving me, because the boss I had actually had no background in fashion as a designer, but had a background in fashion as a model, and she wanted to start a fashion brand, but she needed somebody to manage the tailors and to manage the shop. I had never done that before, but she gave me a chance because generally I just have I'm grateful that I have a gift to set up systems, and I learned on the job, but I managed to do it. I asked questions where I don't understand, but I just did it, and I worked there for approximately 2 years, and then now I went full on into establishing my brand. So in a nutshell, that's my journey. And even as I work now, there are ups and downs, there are things I try, things that don't work out. I've had to get doing some other things that are not fashion related, some are fashion related. So it really just depends on the kind of person you are. And as I've said, the fashion industry is not the most stable. There are seasons where you make a lot of money, there are seasons where you won't. I've changed my business model a couple of times. I've included things, I've removed things. So you're always just trying to see what will work and what will not work. So that is the gist of the fashion industry. If you think there is a formula for working, even people who I know who have been running their brands for decades, there are so many things they have to change just because of how life happens and things have happened. Even international fashion brands, you will realize that they have to pivot once in a while. There are people who even close shop. Look at Zach Posen, who closed his designers, and this is someone who had investors funding all the time. He had even released his latest collection and then immediately shut down. There's always something that happens. It's important to also just look at what happens to other fashion brands and see why maybe things didn't work out, and understand or why they decided to shut down instead of just selling the collection fast. There are so many things that happen. There's a reason why some fashion brands sell perfumes and handbags and shoes outside of their clothing. There's a reason why they diversify. There's a reason why fashion brands long ago, at least from the 40s, would only do custom made, and then they pivoted to making in mass for the mass public. There's a reason why that happened. So you always have to pivot, you always have to change things. Not everyone has the money to be able to do that, but it is important to understand where you're at and to change things and to adapt. So in a nutshell, I hope that helps you. If you have any questions, comment section is open, and now I want to give you the tips that you need to get work in this industry. So I am going to give you 9 tips to be able to get work in this industry, at least in Kenya. I'm going to give you the Kenyan context of all this. So let's begin. Advice I always give fashion students, especially the ones who are about to graduate, is that you should get an internship. And some schools do have that as a requirement before you graduate, and some schools do not have that as a requirement. But the best way to actually get work opportunity, whether it's short-term or a job, is to be an intern in a company that you will learn something. You don't have to be in that company for employment purposes, but that you will learn something. The wisest thing you could do is to go and intern in a brand, because let's be honest, most of the jobs people are going to apply for are fashion design jobs. So if you're interested in the wedding industry, apply for a wedding brand. If you are interested in ready to wear, apply for a ready to wear brand. Be very specific with what you want to learn. Don't just apply to any fashion brand because it's written fashion and you need an internship and you need to pass your exams. And do not wait until your final month or your final year of school to start looking for an internship. You start thinking about it and looking for opportunities from the very beginning, or at least when you get a sense of what you want to do in the fashion industry. Do not wait for the last minute. So the beauty of an internship is that if you are a very good intern, because you are probably working in your area of passion, is that if you're very good, it could lead to employment opportunities. And that is usually the easiest way to actually get a job and the best way to get work experience. Volunteering is something that a lot of people don't like to do because people like to be paid for their work. The problem is if you volunteer and expect to be paid, and you're expecting that the person who's giving you this opportunity needs to also show you what to do, like handhold you into everything, that's where the catch-22 comes. So if you're going to volunteer and work because you really just need the experience, usually the person giving you the opportunity will be a bit more lenient with hand-holding you and showing you what you need to do, because they value the fact that you're giving your time for free. So the people I meet who volunteer a lot are fashion models, and I don't necessarily think that they do it because they want to, but sometimes some of them figure that if the more publicity they get and the more visibility they get, the more opportunities they'll get. The more work they do, the more experience they get. Generally, it works like that for most jobs. I have myself volunteered in different capacities. I volunteer even in church. I volunteered for organizations. I do a lot of volunteer work. So some of my experience, some of them mostly non-fashion related, I volunteer a lot, although I have volunteered for fashion related opportunities as well. So don't look down on volunteering. Sometimes it helps. I've also volunteered to write blogs which improve my writing, and just do it because sometimes it's a very, very good way to have an opportunity to work with someone with a different skill set from you, or a different profession from you, or someone who's more skilled than you, so that you can be able to grow in your skills. So don't really look down on volunteering. Sometimes it's necessary so that you can be able to grow your skill, research, networks, and all that. So sometimes if an internship is not possible, volunteer. It can be fashion events, it can be magazines, it can be blogs, it can be retail shops, it can be anything you can think of. Yeah. I would really advise you to choose your focus early, and especially just narrow down on what you're really, really interested in, especially in design, because the thing about how we are taught here in Kenya is that you're taught so many different things. Like I remember when I was in school, we were taught how to make curtains, and we were taught how to make tablecloths and stuff like that. I was not interested in that, but it was part of the syllabus and I just had to learn it. And there are some people in my class who went that direction and continued learning, and that's what they did for work. But I was more interested in clothes. So either way, it's important to narrow down on what you want to do. The truth is that it is very difficult to do that. So, and then also the other truth is that sometimes it will change with time. You might start off doing swimwear, then you change to weddings, then you change to something. You might just find that you started off here, but you follow the money and you end up in activewear or something like that. So it's also good to be adaptable, but do choose a focus. Sometimes also focusing helps. If you are very good at doing shoes and shoes is what you do well, and maybe what will really change is the type of shoe you do, but not necessarily that you leave shoes. Or I have seen people who do leather and they started off doing leather accessories like belts and wallets and things like that, and now they do leather furniture. So they just changed what they make the leather with, but they still work with leather. So do narrow down on that niche, even if it's just a fabric. Maybe you just love chiffon and chiffon is the only fabric you work with and all your work is chiffon, or you only do a certain silhouette flowy clothes and you're known for flowy clothes and all that. Because the goodness of narrowing down is that you become an expert in that specific thing, and people will come to you because they know you're good at doing that specific thing. So do choose your focus very early. Attend events and network. This goes for both when you're running your business or when you're looking for a job. Sometimes people see these networking events, even trainings. Sometimes there are very many trainings, and I know for me, maybe I can just say right now, we are very fortunate that there are very many trainings and workshops that are being targeted towards women. And I'm not saying it's necessarily fair for the men, but it's important to take advantages of those, because some of those events are fully funded and you don't have to pay anything to attend them. And so the importance of that is that it helps you meet people. Depending on the type of training it is, you could be meeting people in your industry or meeting people out of the industry. Sometimes the beauty of meeting people outside your industry is that you can easily meet new clients, because the truth is people in your industry are not going to support your business in terms of, they're not going to come to you to get clothes. But the beauty of meeting people in your industry is that you can exchange ideas, you can refer each other, work, and that's how you make friends in the industry. Because the truth is you cannot live in a bubble where you think you know everything and you don't need other people in the industry. That can't happen. You need each other to grow. So definitely network, attend those events. It doesn't matter if you are not qualified, because I know some people dismiss themselves for that. Sometimes just reach out and ask, can I come? I'm a fashion student. I really want to learn about this. I don't think I get another opportunity. Can I come for your event so that I can learn about this and this and this? Ask. That is how it works. No one is going to offer it to you if you don't ask. And sometimes you asking might make them think that maybe they should widen the scope of the people who they are targeting to come for their events. Keep yourself learning about the industry. Keep up to date with what's going on in the industry, the advancements, the technology, the news, the new government policies. Always keep yourself updated. So make sure you join all those groups. Most of the time you'll get the news from groups, whether it's a WhatsApp group or Facebook group. Don't join just the groups for teaching you how to sew something. Sometimes also join information groups. Check YouTube as well. I've realized a lot of people only go to YouTube channels that are for sewing tutorials, and yet there's so many other channels that actually teach you about the business side of fashion. Of course, this one is one of them. And it's important to keep up to date with what's going on, because fashion is more than just making things. So keep up to date. Sometimes you could get a job and unless you just want a sewing job. If you learn things about the industry that you could easily go to an interview for and impress the person you are interviewing with information they have not heard about in the industry, or your impressive networks and stuff like that, Yeah, so think about it when you are learning about the industry. That could be the asset or the thing that gets you the job. So I would definitely encourage you to gain skills that support whatever it is you're already doing in your job description. If you are applying for a fashion brand and they tell you, I'm sorry, we are not looking for fashion interns right now, and you say, but I'm very good at social media, managing social media, you could actually end up getting an opportunity to do social media for that company. It might not be exactly what you wanted to do in terms of fashion, but you could end up being their social media manager, or you're very good at editing and shooting and editing videos. You could volunteer to do it for a trial period and say, I'll only do this, I can do this for you for a month. If you see a different, please give me an opportunity. You have to learn how to negotiate these things. You can't always expect that people are automatically going to give you because you asked. So try and play up your other skills. If you know you have other skills, maybe you're very good at bidding and you see that they need someone to do bidding for some of their things once in a while. Maybe they could pass on work to you. You could do a sample for them. Please make sure you're paid for your work, even if you do a sample. You could do or carry a portfolio, which is usually way better, and show that you can do other things that could be an asset. Always approach these opportunities with what you could offer the company. Even though you also want to learn from what they're doing, it's also important that you can also offer something new. I'm going to really stress this one. Being formal. The reason I said be formal is because I've gotten WhatsApp messages very many times of someone just telling me, hi, my name is this and this. In fact, some of them are courteous enough to say their names. Some of them don't even bother to say what their names are. They'll just say, I studied fashion and I need a job. So does the whole country of Kenya need a job. Nobody owes you a job. Just because you've asked doesn't mean anyone owes you a job. Nobody owes you an internship opportunity. I have given opportunities to people who have asked me informally and I have regretted it. I have given opportunities to people who haven't even done a fashion course, and most of the time it doesn't go well because majority of those people do not end up studying fashion in the end. So that means that they took up an opportunity for somebody who actually needed it more and had studied fashion and actually need to develop their skill to survive the industry. So currently, I no longer give any opportunities to anybody who has not studied fashion. I leave the opportunities I give to people who studied fashion. That being said, I also have a very difficult time with people who studied fashion because there's usually some attitude that I get because a lot of people think that when you get an opportunity in a fashion brand that you expect a certain level, so you expect some glitz and glam, some shop and all that, so you don't think you can learn anything from someone who is doing their business in a different way. And that attitude has killed a lot of internships with me. And considering how one-on-one I usually am, it's usually just their loss because they decided they will learn more in a bigger shop or a bigger business. And the truth is, the thing about bigger businesses is that you will probably work in a department, you will not learn about the whole business. So you'll only end up learning about only one aspect of the business, which won't really help you much. Even when you decide to start your own business, you will just be stuck and trying to figure out things again. So don't look down on the opportunities you do get. Understand that you're going to learn something anyway, whether it is a startup, because the truth is a lot of startups do need help and they can't necessarily pay someone as an employee, but maybe they could afford to give you a stipend. But please apply formally. The truth is we do recommend our interns to other people. If we do not have the opportunity, I'll be like, I really have this intern. She was really good. I can't afford her, but she's good. She'll be an asset to you. I've done that very many times. I recommend people all the time, but I really do check attitude. I check how you approach. People are always asking, oh, do you know someone who could do this, who could do that? I will never, ever recommend somebody who is rude, informal, and indecisive and cannot figure out what they want and don't have clear goals of where they're going. So please be formal. It's very important for you. So because fashion is a talent-based industry, it is important that you always get some work, even if it's short term, to improve on your skills and your knowledge of the industry. So always keep improving yourself, always keep working on your skill. Ensure that even if you do not have a job or you're not getting work from people, you are working on things yourself. Like I have said in my intro, I used to make clothes for myself, and I learned more about the woman's body because of making clothes for myself. And because I've always had fluctuating weight, I have dressed myself when I'm smaller and I've dressed myself when I'm bigger, and I have learned a few skills here and there about dressing different types of women's bodies. And granted, I'm also tall. It also helped me learn the skill of knowing how much fabric you need for an outfit, because I make clothes for myself. I'm tall and I'm big, so I definitely take more fabric than an average person. So if someone is a bit shorter than me, but still maybe my body measurements, I can tell how much fabric they need. If someone is as tall as me and still slim, I can tell. So it has just helped me gauge different things. So it's very, very important to always work on your skill, no matter what. Even if your skill is not necessarily a sewing skill, maybe you need business skills, accounting skills, whatever skill you need. Just always make sure you've upgraded and you're learning something to make everything better. Even if you're an established person in the industry, it's always important to keep learning, because the truth is, as Heidi Klum says many times, one day you're in and the next you're out. So what's going to make you stand out from everyone else who's coming into the market? You could be trending right now, and a few years from now someone comes and does what you do better. So how will you stand out? How will you remain relevant? So you always have to keep upgrading your knowledge of what you do. Having a portfolio is very, very important, whether you're a student, whether you are a professional, whether you are trying to look for a job. It's important to keep a portfolio so that people know what you do. Not everybody has the patience to ask you to bring things. I don't understand. I have interviewed people, especially tailors. Tailors tend to be very notorious for just coming for an interview and claiming that they can do everything. So I have learned to give sewing interviews, and of course you pay. You don't do sewing interviews and not pay. So I give them something to sew, and especially in the area they focus, because I always ask. Tailors will always tell you that they can do more than they really can, but I always ask where their strengths are, and I will give them a task based on what they say their strength is, and I'll be able to know if they can even do the other one. So it's very, very important. Most of the time I get them to make something for myself because I know how things fit on me. So always just have your work ready. Have an online presence. Even if you don't want your face to be seen or whatever it is, just make sure at least somehow that your work is displayed, whether it's in a digital portfolio somewhere that you could easily share when you're applying for opportunities, or it's on an Instagram page or something like that. A lot of brands, especially brands that buy things from you wholesale or want to stock you, they usually check your social media presence and how you've put things on social media. A lot of people just spy. They don't even ask you anymore, they just spy. So always just be prepared. And if you are getting work that is not necessarily related to what you studied, and you still need to work on your portfolio, create some online presence based on what you're doing. Example, if you're managing tailors like I used to, you could give tips to people. You could write blogs. You could be a guest in a blog and write about how to manage tailors, how to make workflow effective. Or if you're an accountant for a fashion brand, you could also write even LinkedIn articles, because it's free to write LinkedIn articles, and you can write about what you need to keep into account for your fashion business. the expenses that maybe you forget to consider, things like that. There are very, very many things that you could. Content is not just one type. There's so many different types of content that you can educate or give people on. Just like I do YouTube, and I give you all sorts of content, and it's a lot of work, but it's also a great resource for everybody. So for my bonus tip, I want to advise you that you have to understand that in Kenya, the fashion industry is very saturated. There are a lot of people doing the same thing, a lot. And the problem is that when you are a student and you get into the market and you just want to make money, you just want to copy what the successful person is doing, and it doesn't work. It never works, because the customer knows that person who's established and what they're doing, none will do it. There are people who will come and play tricks on you and tell you, or do it, and then they'll tell you to do it cheaper, and you think, oh, it's working, so that you continue making it cheaper. And then the truth is, it eventually dies down, because you end up not having ideas to continue, and you end up struggling and closing shop. It never lasts. You have to have your own ideas, and you have to create your own community for the people who are going to buy from you. Also, just be very, very resilient. If you're not resilient, you will not hack it in this industry. It is very difficult to keep to keep a sustainable business, because you always have to keep adapting to very, very various things that happen. So I would just advise you, just keep at it. And there is a community I have a WhatsApp group. It's strictly for fashion designers and people who want to get into the fashion industry, but mostly fashion designers. And it's a designers info group on WhatsApp, and I share a lot of, it's not just me actually, it's a peer-to-peer sharing group. So we share resources and we answer each other's questions and everything like that, but it really is just to help each other out navigating the different things that happen in the industry, and also sharing opportunities. So we do that a lot. So if you send me an email is easier. I could easily allow you to enter the group, and it's just email. If you send me a WhatsApp, if you send me anything like that, I will not respond. I'm sorry. Email. So anyway, thank you for watching to this end. Next week we start a new series. I want to share trainings I have done, opportunities I have been part of, how they've helped me, what they helped me with. I think it will really help build up on this series, so that you can also see just the different things I have done to help me grow in my career as a designer, and to figure out how I'm navigating my business. So I hope I will see you next week, and bye for now.